Welcome to the latest edition of the Giants Hangout podcast, presented by Crestron, a proud partner of the New York Giants. Our weekly roundtable discussion as we recap the previous game, also look ahead. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. Unfortunately, the Giants fall short in Philadelphia, 33-25 to the Eagles, as Philly has now won 11 straight, including the playoffs against the Giants in the city of brotherly love. Lance Meadow, Russ Salzberg, Howard Cross with you. And we bring in a fourth edition, a special holiday edition here of the Giants Hangout podcast, and our returning champion, an individual that in the first time in the history of the program will make a second appearance, which means that they survived the first go around with Howard Cross and still volunteered to come back for another. So Chris Pizzignano from the Giants Insider newspaper and podcast. If I had a trophy, Chris, I would hand it out to you right now because you have accomplished what no other individual has done in the history of, I would say, the Giants franchise, okay? Not just this program. But it's good to see you. Glad to have you back on board. We're going to analyze three themes, as we do each and every week: third down defense, third down offense, as well as a quarterback change, and a whole lot more. And Howard, I want to start with the Giants defense because they did have an opportunity at the very end of the game to potentially tie and force overtime, and we can't overlook that. But I see an Eagles offense that piled up 465 total yards, scored on 7 of its 10 possessions, and was able to stay on the field on third down. Giants had problems, especially late, getting off the field, and the cumulative effect of that, I think, took a toll on this Giants defense.
Yeah, kind of. I think more than anything else, they were trying to figure out ways to slow them down and stop them, so that they were trying to, keep the bigger plays out. The thing that got them mostly is like a couple times they had them back behind the sticks with 3rd and 15 or more, and one time even with 3rd and 20, and they just couldn't find a way. They were playing sticks. That's when you play everybody back at the marker for the first down, and they were just playing. They just weren't following receivers. They were letting guys come up the field free. And then the ideal, if you're playing sticks, you'll have enough time to get to the quarterback. Jalen did a great job of like going from one sideline to the other, getting out of tackles and stuff. If you didn't bring your legs, you weren't going to bring him down. And he was doing what Jalen Hurts does. He kept it alive. Guys were standing on the sticks, and he just picked a guy that was open or had the most room. He would throw it to him. If you weren't right on top of him, the ball got right there quick. First downs. If they stopped them on those 2 first downs, it's a different game.
Yeah, another thing that stuck out to me, and guys, we've spoken about this several times. There are times when our defense, the Giants defense, looks good, but there are times, I don't know what it is. I know, Howard, you and I, we alluded to it earlier in the season. Maybe even in training camp, because of the rules and regulations and stipulations, you can't practice as much. But the tackling, once again, looked awful on so many occasions. I mean, I understand they got guys like Swift who are fast and Hurts, but the tackling was just 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you can't allow the other team to be breaking that many tackles in a game.
Well, yes and no, Ross. You have to also take into account they have the best offensive line maybe in the game. So in a lot of cases, when we've seen the Giants do great tackling, it's 2 or 3 guys on the hit every time. They had some bad tackling, like in the secondary. I thought they were just throwing their shoulders at guys a couple times. But at the line of scrimmage, there were guys getting through at full speed because you couldn't get 2 or 3 guys to them. Like one guy would be free, and if that guy wasn't perfectly positioned in the hole, there was going to be the guy was into the secondary already. So you gotta take your hat off to their offensive line, which is one of the better offensive lines in the league, and putting a lot of stress on the secondary for guys who they're great players. They want to be good tacklers, but unless it's 2 or 3 guys there, it's kind of hard for them to get a lot of guys down.
And Chris, I want to bring you into the dialogue. Russ, we'll come back to you in a second. I just want to piggyback off of what Howard just brought up because, Chris, to me, that was notable, the Eagles' offensive line. On their last drive, it's a 5-point game. Giants are still very much in striking distance. The Eagles are going to run here. And they run the ball with DeAndre Swift for the first 5 plays. He picks up 48 yards. And in the blink of an eye, they get into field goal range. That was a huge backbreaker, even though it was still a 1-score game.
Yeah, look, they went into their 4-minute offense, and they were basically telling the Giants, we're going to run DeAndre at you. Good luck. Stop it. And they couldn't. And look, a lot of that was DeAndre. He's just a really skilled back, and he made a lot of those yards on his own. But they just imposed look, the Eagles' offensive line is right up there with the Cowboys, one of the best in the league. We know that, right? They just imposed their will on the Giants at the end in that 4-minute offense, and Giants just couldn't stop it, and just to get back to what Howard was saying before that 3rd and 20, to use a boxing analogy, Lance, the Giants had them on the ropes. They had the Eagles on the ropes at that time, and Jalen came up big with that 3rd and 20 to AJ over by the sticks. That was one of the big parts of the game, man. And then at the end, like you said, they're just imposing their will. And DeAndre just did what DeAndre does. He's a real good back. Let's not forget that. Yeah, there was some missed tackles. To me, there was way too many missed tackles. And like Howard said, some guys in the secondary, once again, throwing their shoulders in there, not wrapping up, not driving to the ground. But give credit to them. Their offensive line is real good. Even with Dickinson out, Opeta jumps in there, and he's a solid guard too, man. It's amazing. They don't miss much. And credit to them, and credit to DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, Chris just used the expression, they don't wrap them up. Maybe that's what I was driving at with Howard. They just don't wrap them up. You get to them, wrap them up, put your arms around them, and they're breaking free. And there was so many plays, like you talk about the 3rd and 20. You think you got them. You got them right where you want them. You're going to be in good shape. They make a big play. How about the when the ball was snapped over Hurts? They turned that into a 1st down. I mean, it was just plays where you thought you had them, as Chris says, on the ropes. Not only on the ropes, maybe with one eye closed, and then bang. They don't only get out of the trouble, they sucker punch you and get a 1st down or a touchdown. It was that was very frustrating to watch.
Yeah,
it's just on that play, Howard, just real quickly, on that play, not only did Hurts salvage it, but he throws to a tight end that didn't have one target or one reception the entire season.
Calcaterra, yeah.
Don't we expect something like that at the Link? It's like every year, right, fellas? Something is going to happen kind of different at the Link when the Giants played him. It's amazing. And this year was that. Some wild plays they converted. It's just amazing. Every year we go into this building and something kind of different happens.
Well, I think, again, like we're talking about the tackling and like Jalen just kept plays alive. And I don't think people realize how important and strong this kid is. And when he gets able, if you're running around for your life, guys start to like come up to try to make the tackle. Like the more guys start rushing up to try to get him, because like we got him. And one guy's just standing there, catches the ball. That's just part of the game. That, it's luck. I told people, watch how these blitzes go and watch what happens. They would have him almost sacked on one side of the field. He'd spin out and run all the way across the field. That's a 4-second, 5-second play. You didn't get to him, somebody's eventually going to get open and shake free. The Dante Swift one time gets to the line of scrimmage. They have him boxed in, but no one has their hand on him because the offensive line has everybody blocked up. He reverses field and starts across the field. When he comes out the other side, the guys are shocked that he's still running. And by the time they start trying to catch up to him, it's too late. He's past him. He's got an angle. He's got extra blockers out in front of him. He has a convoy to the end zone. In games like this, when you're playing a better team, you got to have more guys rallying to the ball than you usually would. And every opportunity that you have, you got to make it. And you can't have plays where, that was almost there. Oh, that was so close. You got to make every play. Every ball that comes to you, you got to catch offensively and defensively. And hate to do it to you, Lance. Like I said, turnovers are luck, because you see what happens when the ball hits guys in the hands over and over and over again. They don't always catch it. The one fumble they had, the guys ran into each other. They had a butt fumble.
That's right.
No, they did.
It was a butt fumble. Yes, sir.
It was.
Yeah,
Boston Scott ran into Zacchaeus, or Zacchaeus ran into Boston Scott, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like you have Jackson, who never intercepts the ball, always knocks the ball down. He caught that ball like 7 times before he caught it, and then he ran it down the field. So when I tell you turnovers and stuff like that, like our luck, now you got to see the proof of it.
Well, how it's some will definitely look like that. Some are by design, though. I mean, there's some. Look at Bobby Okereke, Howard, right? I mean, he's got like 4 forced fumbles, and he punches that ball out. Teams like the Cowboys practice that. That's why they're always up there with turnovers. So no question. Some are definitely by luck, and some teams are just very good at it. Hey, look, the Giants have been good at it, right, Howard? I mean, look at the way they've been punching balls out. getting some
You punch it
interceptions.
and punch it. Like I tell them, it's all luck. If you can punch 1,000 times, you'll get 3 out, and you're like, you're good at it. It's like it's not like baseball. It doesn't happen every time. What happens is when you scheme guys up, like a K, dropping into the zone, supposed to catch that ball when it comes to him. Simmons 2 times the ball. One the ball hit him in the hands, right in the chest. That would have been a pick six. The other time when that was the long play happens, the one we keep talking about, the third and forever. Like that's Simmons' pass to catch. The ball is being thrown right over his head. He's not deep enough. If they're baiting him to throw the ball and he's just not in position, the ball goes right over his head. If you're in your right position and you catch the ball, there may be 2 more plays that are, interceptions for touchdowns. But the luck has it that they're not in the right spot, and one, they don't catch it.
Chris, I've climbed that mountain all season long. It's Christmas. I'm going to give Howard a pass today. I'll move on to other topics.
The turnover issue?
Oh,
Yeah, I appreciate, Chris, you fighting the good fight. I mean, like I said, there was no hyperbole at the beginning of the show.
I'm not, Lance.
I appreciate
I'm not fighting Howard. I don't
Chris,
believe it's all luck. I mean, you have like the team like the Cowboys that are up there every year in the plus, in the plus category. That's a little bit more than luck too. But I totally get what Howard's saying. But I'm just not going to say, a team like the Cowboys or whatever, they're a plus category every year because they just happen to be lucky. I'm not going to agree with my man Howard on that one, but I get what he's saying a lot of times.
The Cowboys are front runners. If the game is even, there's no turnovers except for just Dak interceptions.
This
Howard's a stubborn one, huh, Lance? You don't want to give it.
Chris, there's
Yes.
Chris, there's a reason that Lance gave you the award for coming back.
I get it. Well, you know what, Russ? I had Howard on the podcast once too. Yeah, Howard's a great guest, man. He's an interesting guest. He is. He can be tough.
Chris, you're a very brave man for inviting him on your podcast. Let me leave it at
that. He was great.
So
Howard was great,
yes.
man.
Well,
he's a great guest.
we don't deny for entertainment purposes Howard hits home runs. It's the other things, but we'll leave it at that. In all seriousness,
Howard's kid's a Notre Dame guy. I'm a Notre Dame guy. I'll always love Howard just for that alone.
As he wears an Alabama hat during the course of this program.
I know.
He's an equal opportunist when it comes to the Giants hangout. But in all seriousness,
Howard chose Notre Dame. I chose Bama.
The Giants do have 3 pick sixes this season, and they also got a special teams takeaway, whether it was a fortuitous bounce or not. And they've needed those plays, guys, because of the offensive struggles. So that can't at least be overlooked. But I think what we were talking about, and the reason why I wanted to emphasize the third downs, is situational football. And when you play the Philadelphia Eagles, you have to be able to deliver. Now, Howard, you were saying that, and I think there's a very valid point to this. You go back, you're going to look at it from the Giants' perspective. You're going to play the coulda, woulda, shoulda game. If we wrapped up DeAndre Swift on a play, maybe we forced him to punt. If we stay in position when Jalen Hurts is running left to right and he doesn't get A.J. Brown for 32 yards, maybe we forced them to punt. I mean, Howard, it was a 2-point game. And this goes back to what Chris said. They had them on the ropes. It's 20-18. When Jalen Hurts makes that pass to A.J. Brown, they wind up scoring a touchdown. Those things, you go back and you look, a game of inches, it's a cliched line, but I think it holds true in a game like this.
It's more than just those plays. You have the tight end running down the middle on the seam, dropping the pass. If he catches the pass, he's like, oh, it would have been a first down. No, it would have been a touchdown. Waller would have waltzed into the end zone. Nobody deep down the field.
How about Saquon?
Yeah, Saquon. The play where he gets stopped on the third down. He's getting stopped on the third down because the tight end, and again, another tight end, and they're double teaming on the edge. They're not going up to the linebacker. They go up to the linebacker and just block him. They're like, just get a piece of him. Saquon probably runs to the house. So you can see plays all over the field, and you can see, like, obviously where you're supposed to be going up to the second level just to get a piece of a guy or get in the way of a guy. They just didn't do it. They ran it to wide 9 most of the night, and eventually, for whatever reason, they had a receiver in there one time to tackle or block the wide 9, and he just didn't even slow the guy down and made a tackle in the backfield. So those plays are over and over and over again, missed opportunities from the offense, and those are the reasons why you're not getting your first downs and getting the third and whatever. I thought that the offense did a great job. When we always talk, I always want to see progress. They did a great job of moving the ball on first down. They weren't behind the sticks a lot. The third downs, whether they were completed or not, were basically third down and manageables over and over again, 3rd and 4s, 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6, not 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 11s, like 3rd and plus. So I thought that they had chances a lot of times. They just have to everybody has to be on the same page. You can't guess or you can't not know what you're doing against a really good team because they're not going to keep giving you opportunities, even though the Eagles gave them a lot of opportunities last night.
Well, to your point, Howard, they only faced 1/3 and 10. And that
Mm-hmm.
to me is a big indicator. They avoided those negative plays. But I also want to piggyback, Russ, on what Howard brought up as we move towards the third down Giants offense, because there were a lot of missed opportunities. And just for our audience to understand, and obviously all Giants fans watch the game, but there was a 3rd and 7 in the first quarter. Tommy DeVito over the middle to Darren Waller, slightly behind, but he bobbled it, open space. 3rd and 4 in the third quarter, underthrown pass to Barkley. Taylor was pressured. And then a 3rd and 1 in the fourth quarter, underthrown pass to Waller with Taylor pressured again. And you go back, Russ, you look at all 3 of those plays, they make those catches, they execute, they give Taylor a little more protection. Who knows what happens at the end of those drives?
But yeah, but listen, you're alluding to one of our other topics, especially when the first couple from DeVito. I mean, Brian Dable is seeing that. That's part of the reason that Brian Dable made the changes. I mean, those were plays that were there for the Giants to make, but they weren't made. But that's been a theme for too long this season. That's been a problem. That's the reason why their record is 5-10. It's just what do you call it? Missed opportunities, and there's just far too many of those missed opportunities.
I think on the sideline a couple times, I think what maybe got him in trouble, DeVito, is like, little Robinson is out there. He airmails the ball on him a couple times when he's wide open, and they're like, those are the plays that keep drives alive. And when he does it, they at halftime, they're like, okay, kid, you've done a good job. I need you to sit down.
Yeah.
We're going to try to get somebody else in. The problem is that for whatever reason, I think Tyrod and even Daniel Jones, when they throw the ball to the side, when they're turning sideways to throw the ball to those arrow routes going away, I don't know if they can't get enough on them. I know that they're usually throwing the ball around the arm of a defender that's coming at them, so they're trying to put some kind of different angle throwing the ball, and they just can't get it out there. And you definitely don't want to float it in the air, because if you float it in the air, it's a pick six going in the other direction. So it's just part of the game.
You mentioned Wandell, ball being floated over him. There was also a play late in the game when Tyrod threw to Wandell. Wandell has to make that catch. That catch was in his breadbasket. He's got to make that catch. There's been too many of those plays all season long, and that's why the predicament they're in.
And another thing is, like, they're seeming like they're not just playing against the Eagles in some cases, and I hate to do this, but they're also playing against the refs. The refs are making like some really
It's a fact.
Unbelievable. Like the play at the end of the half, like they run out of time. That's over with. Like the game should be over. They're making a call that I know it has a big emphasis on the fact to get up off the guy, but the ball's loose on the ground. They're fighting for the ball. You're supposed to fight for the ball if the ball is loose, because if he picks it up, all of a sudden you got to make a decision. Was the ball fumbled or was the ball not fumbled? The call on Schmitz when they call
the head bob.
Yeah, that's not a head bob. Like
right.
He's done the same move the entire game. The quote unquote non-pass interference on the sideline with Robinson, the tackling of Barkley in the end zone. I'm like, it's like, okay. Then the officials like being defiant to the coach on the sideline, like that's not a penalty. And coach is like, what are you watching? Like it's
frustrating.
I have no idea. I have no idea what to say.
Howard, it's frustrating. You could see it in Dable's face in the post-game presser. He was fuming, and it wasn't, he was fuming, and I'm sure that was one of the main issues he was fuming about. And he'll never go there. Dave's is never going to go there. He gave the answer last night. I talked to them about it. But you could look. We all know Dave's pretty good now. You could tell him something when he's pretty pissed about something. He was pretty pissed about that because why? Howard, if the game's in MetLife, that's probably a flag on Roby on down the sideline in the last drive. Okay. Bobby Okereke, he wasn't trying to delay there. He thought the ball was loose.
The ball was loose.
Okay. He thought the ball.
Chris, Bobby was doing exactly what you alluded to a little while ago. Bobby was doing what he tries to do. Punch the ball out. That's what he tries to do.
That's exactly, Russ. And the ball You know,
It was stupid. Yeah, you're 100%.
I mean, the ball was, Jalen was down, but the ball was still kind of loose. Bobby is trained. That's what you're supposed to do. You're fighting for the ball. He wasn't trying to pin the ball down to the delay. That was another horrific call. And look, I'm not one to jump on refs too automatically, but let's face it. There's been a lot of even the spotting of the ball in the last drive. I thought they were a little slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like Saquon basically had to rip the ball, give it to the ref.
That wasn't the ref's fault. That was and again, not to beat on the tight end, but he takes a pretty good shot in the back and he's laying on the ground.
Yeah,
you have to get up. You have no timeouts. You have to know I gotta get up or roll the ball to one of your buddies to get it back to the ref.
Right.
But he couldn't. He's like getting up slow. Saquon runs over, yanks the ball out of his hands, and runs the ball back to the ref. The ref that's standing over him could have easily picked the ball up and tossed it to the guy inside. He stood there and he wouldn't touch the ball, as if to say, you have to get it back to the middle of the field, which I still think is a little weird because that guy takes the ball and throws it back to the middle all the time. But on that particular play, he literally stood there and wouldn't take the ball from him. And he tried to hand it to him. He reached out, like, here you go. He's like,
yeah.
He was basically waiting to see, are you injured? Because you're injured, the time runs off, the game's over.
Yep. Philly stuff, right, Howard? Always weird stuff in the link. It's amazing.
Something's going on.
Something's always going on in the link, Howard. We could count on that once a year. It's amazing.
Tyrod in the post game, and I'm sure you saw this, Chris, in the post game, Tyrod alluded to even the last play. He said, he said, I'm not going to get into it, but there were a lot of things I saw on that last play that could have been called. And, somebody brought up the point, well, maybe you don't want to call it. And Tyrod brought up the point that, look, a penalty is a penalty. It shouldn't be any different from the last play of the game, from the first play of the game. If it's there, it's there. And you listen.
Tyrod's frustrated, Howard.
Yeah, he was.
Russ, Tyrod's frustrated. Yeah.
Yep.
Russ, look, fellas, we see this every week in this league with Hail Marys. You could basically just do what you want to a guy in the end zone and Hail Marys, and they're just not going to throw a flag. Yesterday, I see Saquon get blasted at the back of the end zone by Blankenship. You're just not going to get it.
The problem is that at the half they make a silly call to allow them to get 3 points, and at the end of the game they don't make a call.
Well, that's exactly right.
That's the problem. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you know what it goes back to? It goes back to, Russ, when you're talking about the last Super Bowl. If you remember, a lot of people were annoyed because of the pass interference call. But my argument is you call that in the fourth quarter, just like you call that in the first quarter. Makes no difference where you are in the game. Pass interference is pass interference. You can't say, well, we want to let them play now because we want to make good television. That's not how football operates. So I think that's a good example of what Tyrod was talking about with respect to the end zone.
It's just inconsistency in the calls. It's kind of like in baseball. If a guy's giving you the outside of the plate all the time, the pitcher, that's okay. Just be consistent with it. But there in the NFL, and I'm not just talking about the Giants game yesterday.
That's around the league.
Around the league, they're inconsistent. This is a penalty. This is not a penalty. This is a pass interference. This is not a pass interference. They need to fix that in the National Football League big time.
Were there any pass interferences in the entire game yesterday?
No.
That's the Giants' second game.
Well, Howard, that's what drives everybody crazy in this league is that one crew will call it one way, another crew will call it another way. They'll change by halves. They'll call every crew will call touch fouls beginning of the year. Then they ease up towards the end of the year, and then the playoffs you could basically jump out somebody. I mean, that's what drives everybody ballistic in this league. Howard.
Well, in all fairness, the Hail Marys, they're never going to call pass interference. But like
I said that, yeah.
But if you tackle a guy to the ground, that's usually so egregious you don't have a choice. So I don't know what to tell you.
Well, listen, in fairness to what I'll also add, not to say that this justifies anything, but you look at the numbers, the Eagles were penalized 9 times, the Giants just 3. So there was a differential. The big difference is, and I think this goes back to what we're all talking about, is it's not so much the volume, it's when penalties are called.
Yeah.
The Giants, it came at critical times. And what we haven't brought up, remember, the Okereke delay of game is Jalen Hurts makes a very questionable decision to not run out of play. If he runs out of play, we're not even talking about Okereke being in position. to maybe make the officials think about delay of game. They have no timeouts. He chooses to stay in bounds. They want to hustle to spike it to try to get a field goal. The delay of game stops the clock and gives them another at bat. So that's why that was critical.
And they had no chance. Yeah,
No,
they had no chance of spiking.
4 seconds, they had no shot. No.
Yep, no shot.
The John Michael Schmitz penalty, very rare. It reminded me of a play that was actually called against the Steelers' long snapper. I don't know if you guys remember against the Patriots on Thursday Night Football a few weeks ago. But in fairness to the Giants, the next possession, Adoree does get the pick six. So at least the Giants made up for what was a questionable call that went against them. But you can't make up for the Bobby Okereke because it's right at the end of the first half. There's no time left there. And then, of course, what happens in the end zone at the end of the game, there's no time to make up for that because the game is over. So I just think those contexts, those items are important to bring into the discussion when at least evaluating some of these penalties that we're talking about.
Yeah, and Lance, just one quick thing. You know, you talk about the John Michael Schmitz penalty. The play before that was with Barkley was wide open in the flat. Wide open, and Tyrod didn't hit him. I mean, if you look, Howard, I'm sure you saw it when you were there. There was nothing but green. It looked like there was nothing but green behind Saquon there. That would have been a huge chunk play. The next one is the penalty.
Yeah, the problem with these plays is that, and I think, you know, I get that the guy's open in the flat, and I understand what we're seeing on TV because you're looking at it on TV. But if they had a camera angle where you see the quarterback, his arm angle has to change so much to try to get the ball around the defender and try to get something on it. It's just, I don't know how to explain it. Some guys are really good at it. They have a lot of different arm angles they can throw the ball from, but you can't float it for whatever, because if you float it and it doesn't come out of your hand properly, that's a pick six. You can't try to zip it through the guy's hands because we see guys bat the ball up and catch it and run it in for a pick six. So you have to just kind of like try to throw it under or over his arm just enough so he can catch the ball. And a lot of times these guys are trying to go under, and when they go under, it hits the ground. The bat skips to them. So that's going to be one play over. The Waller play, when he was rolling out and taking pressure, Waller has to like throttle down and catch the ball.
Thank you.
He's fading away.
Yep.
And he'll tell you that he knows that when he looks back at it, he goes, if I just throttle down, I catch that ball and, you know, and I catch it and just fall. If I catch it and fall, it's a first pitch. So like it's just
Howard. Yeah, Howard, it wasn't an easy catch, but that's a catch that could have been made, Howard.
Yeah, but it's not even a catch that could be made. If he slows down, the ball hits him right in the chest.
That's what I'm talking about, Howard. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the play that it could have been made. That's what I'm talking about. So missed opportunities. Like Russ said earlier, just a ton of missed opportunities.
Yep.
And that's why also I would add to why it's such a missed opportunity. You brought up, Howard, the fact that the down and distances were not terrible on third down, but the Eagles, they were the worst third down defense, guys, in the NFL coming into this game. They gave up 48% of the time conversions. Giants only went 4 of 14. Now, they made up for some of them with some fourth down conversions, but I think one of the biggest storylines, at least from my perspective, as we previewed this game last week, was people wanted to see whether or not this game would be competitive in comparison to other contests, and they had it within one score. But also, could you take advantage of a Philadelphia team that this year was very different from last season? This was not an Eagles juggernaut. They have talent, but they were not beating up teams like they were last season. And the third down struggles is one area you wanted to capitalize on. The run defense, and Saquon had a few productive runs. Maybe it didn't take as much of a toll on Philadelphia as they had hoped. And then play in the trenches, because the Eagles were not having the volume of sacks that they were the previous season. Now, there was only one sack that Philadelphia had, but they still got some pressures on Tyrod Taylor that we were talking about that impacted some of those throws. So here's another example. Sacks don't necessarily, Chris, tell the whole story when analyzing a game, even though the volume wasn't necessarily high.
Yeah, you're right, Lance. You know, like you said, the Eagles are way down with sacks, but they still get a pressure rate. Okay, they still get guys up front that are, you know, you can't just look at sack numbers every week and say, oh, they had 2 sacks. They weren't near the quarterback, because you have to look at the pressure rate too. And they were creating pressure. And then there was some missed assignments up front where Hassan, you know, where Reddick was untouched at times, you know, unblocked. Yeah. But yeah, look, they're not the same team. Lance, they're not the same team as last year right now. There's no question about it, you know. But they could still get guys up. They still have guys up front that could crash that pocket and create different things, you know, with the pressure. And you saw that yesterday, you know. So, but look, I thought guys like Tyree Phillips held up well, though. Lance. You know, I thought Andrew did Andrew things as usual. He's very good. I thought Tyree did pretty good up front. He held his position at right tackle. And but like we talked about, Lance, you know, their third down defense is the worst in the league going into the game, right? And the Giants, I think, finished 4-14. So they weren't as good as they wanted to be there. Go ahead, Russ. I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly it. They had a chance against a team that was not good on third down defense. And what'd you just say, 4 or 14? You got to take advantage of a situation, and they weren't doing that.
So let me shine some light on this. What I said last week was what? I'd like to see them get a little bit better. I think even though the numbers are skewed and everything, I thought the Giants got better this week playing against a playoff caliber, probably going to be into the bitter end team. It wasn't a blowout. They had a chance during the entire game. They were super competitive. I know that they didn't get everything done, but they got better. We're sitting here talking about that if they did this instead of this, they would have probably won. I like the idea that they're getting better. I hope that they continue to get better as the season goes, to these last 2 games of the season. But to me, that's a good game for them. It's there's no, what do you call it? The victories there's no,
Moral.
we were so close, moral victory moments. But even with that being said, they got better. They got better defensively, even though like they lost they lost Dante Banks. I mean, once Banks goes out, I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen now? Flott comes in, plays a pretty good game, stays in connection with his receiver the entire game. The down linemen were playing pretty decent ball, except for that last drive that it kind of got away from them. I thought they all played better. I thought they played a little bit better. I know we would like them to make a few more plays, but as for a competitive standpoint, they played the Eagles 3 times last year and they got blown out 3 times last year. This looked like a different opportunity. And even the last game of the season, the Eagles were going to be at their very best, because if the calls don't go the same way, they could lose the last game of the year to the Giants. And it would be great for the Giants. They haven't beat them in a long time.
Well, and they've played 10 of 15 games this season, the Eagles, that have been decided by 1 score. So, I mean, those facts alone could serve as a reminder for Philadelphia that nothing is necessarily going to come easy for them. You brought up the moral victory aspect. Interestingly, Xavier McKinney was asked multiple times in the locker room about that. He was not having it. He was not giving in to any of that. He said, we lost, we didn't execute. So I think the guys in the locker room, you could tell them, hey, you had an opportunity, Russ, to perhaps knock on the door of the end zone at the end of the game, but they're not necessarily clearing out the mantle to get a participation trophy just because it was a competitive game against the Eagles.
No, I would agree with that, but I think what Howard's talking about from our perspective, we see some improvement, in certain positions, fine. But from a player standpoint, no, you don't want the players being happy. You don't, I mean, that's what I want to hear from the players. Screw this moral victory business. We came in to play a game, we came in to win a game, and we lost again. So, I want them pissed off and angry about that. That's the way they're supposed to feel. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Take out that kickoff at the first of the game and let them have like a regular drive and a punt. They may not score in the first drive because they only had to go like, I think, 30 yards or 20 yards. Yep. You take out the drop by Waller, you take out the drop by Simmons, all of a sudden the Eagles will be playing a different game. And I'm not saying the Giants would have won, but you take out those 3 plays and a couple of penalties. Yeah, you can name 5 plays that really, really look like the Giants had more than an opportunity to win. And I've watched the entire year. There's been numerous games, and I mean numerous games where it wasn't 5 plays. You have to take out a whole half. So I think they did a lot better. And I know they shouldn't be happy about moral victories, but for me as a fan and a person who calls these games, I like improvement. I'm disappointed in the loss, right, for real, but I'm, hey, look, I can see where they're improving, and they're trying and making strides.
Yeah, that's something we haven't touched on, right, Lance? 2 short fields lead the Eagle. Like the first drive starts on the Giant 13. Jamie's fighting through the injury. Jamie's trying to give it. He obviously was injured. He's fighting through it. The first drive, a low punt. Survey returns it to the 13. That's 1 easy touchdown. And then the second. Another shortened field, right, leads to some more points for the Eagles. So that was obviously huge in the game too.
Yeah, Britton Covey, their return man, had the big 50-plus yard return on the first
Yeah.
one.
That's
So they're
right.
starting already in Giants territory. And then the second one you were talking about, the short one off the bounce, Covey comes in out of nowhere, only got about an 11, 12-yard return, but they're starting at the
They
Philadelphia
started in
48.
midfield.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's right
Yeah.
around the 50-yard line. And that's the
Yep.
worst thing you could do to a team that has not been scoring and executing at the same rate
Right.
as last season. You give them a gift. I know it's the season of giving, but this is
Mhm.
not the time of the year to
Yep.
be doing that. And your point
No.
is well taken, Chris. Special teams is another facet that came back to bite the Giants. Now, I want to hit on one other element that I was teasing off the top, because as we look ahead to the Rams game, Brian Dable did make a quarterback change for
Yeah.
the second half. And he said that he wanted to provide a spark for the team. And Tyrod Taylor had a beautiful pass to Darius Slayton for 70 yards. And we know he's the veteran. So I guess the question is, 2 games left. What are now the Giants going to decide to do? Are you going to give Tommy DeVito another opportunity? Or are you at the point where Tyrod showed you enough, gave you enough of a spark, you're going to let him ride out the remainder of the season? And I just want to preface this. We've had conversations around the bye week about what the Giants should do. And I think we were all in agreement. Tommy played well. You want to evaluate and win simultaneously because you want to see whether or not he has a role on the roster. Does now the conversation change based on the decision to go with somebody who could provide a spark? And Chris, I'll start with you in terms of what you think from your perspective.
Yeah, I think he's going to stick with Tyrod, because he did provide that spark, right? I mean, he did some good things in the second half. Tyrod, he gave, I guess, Dable was looking for a little bit of a punch, right? Let's get this thing going a little bit. Tommy wasn't providing that in the first half. Tyrod did in the second half, made some plays. I think he's going to stick with Tyrod. I don't think he's going to go back with Tommy.
I agree with Chris. I agree with Chris 100%. Chris and I are there all the time, and we look at each other and we laugh because you know what's coming this week, Chris. As sure as you and I are sitting here talking, they're going to start talking, which we laugh all the time. They're going to start talking about a quarterback. Now we got another quarterback controversy, and I go, oh my God, a quarterback controversy. We're talking about the backup. To the backup, you got a quarterback controversy. It's simple. Right after the game, he was asked, Fables asked, who's your quarterback next week? Dave said, can I think about it a little bit? I'm not there yet. I want to get done with this game. I agree. He was looking for a spark. He got the spark. So now you're going to go with him. Listen, Tommy had a very good run for 3 games. He was not good against the Saints, and he was not good in the first half. That doesn't mean he's a bum. That doesn't mean you're discarding him. But right now, you're going to go with the guy that supplied the spark. Right now, that guy's Tyrod Taylor.
Both of you guys are right, and maybe wrong at the same time. I think what he's going to do, he's going to look at the best opportunity to win. Even though it's late in the season, he doesn't really care about obviously feelings of the quarterbacks. He wants to find a way to win.
Yeah.
And if he believes that Tyrod's going to give him that, he's going to go out and give it to Tyrod. And if he feels like, hey, like the Rams aren't going to be as tough up front and we'll be able to maybe have like a pitch and catch kind of moment, he might put DeVito back in like to let the guys know, okay, I haven't given up on not Tommy, but giving up on winning. So the object for Coach Dable is going to be, I want to win, one of or both of these games. I want to continue to advance. The problem is, and Lance will attest to this, he's a stats guy, they still don't score a lot of points. So regardless of whoever the quarterback is, all the other stuff around the quarterback has to be better. The offensive
We saw that with Daniel, Howard.
Yeah, the offensive line is going to have to be better. You're going to try to ride Saquon to give Saquon some more opportunities. Whoever's the quarterback has to be mobile. So like if it's Tommy, hey Tommy, you're going to have to run down the field because if they're looking at Saquon the whole time, there are going to be some opportunities for you to run. If it's Tyrod, hey Tyrod, let's go, get on your horse and get down. Like I think Tommy kind of led some of this late slide stuff, and they're taking shots at him. Then Tyrod goes out and they take a shot at Tyrod. I don't understand why they're not throwing these guys out of the games, but they got to start trying to protect the quarterbacks a little bit more. They're not doing it, but that's what's going to happen here in the end of this. At the end of the season, coach is going to go for, hey, I want to win, and I think both guys will have to be available and have to be ready because we're going to try to win no matter what. And if I think one of you can give me the best shot at it, let's go. There's
Howard,
quarterback competition or anything like that. They're just trying to win games. This is a desperate moment for the team.
yeah, Howard. I don't know. Tell me how you feel about this. I think if Dave's went back to DeVito Sunday against the Rams, do you believe guys in the locker room would be like, "What are we doing here? Are we looking to win or what?" Tyrod should be the guy.
I don't necessarily believe that, because if Tyrod was the guy, Tyrod should have been the guy for the last 3 weeks.
But he
right?
yanked him at halftime, Howard. This is the difference. He yanked him at halftime,
yanked him at
and he
halftime.
put Tyrod in because he said he wanted that spark. Tyrod gave him a little bit of spark, but how would you feel, Howard? How you as a player, say you were still playing, how would you feel if he goes back to DeVito Sunday?
Well, DeVito missed two big plays. He airmailed a couple balls. So
Excuse me. Yeah.
Airmailed, and that's kind of why he came out and Tyrod came in. It was more because of the action on the field than an emotional. I know everybody keeps saying, oh, he was trying to look for a boost or a spark or whatever it was. He's just like, okay, look, this kid is like airmailing the ball. I can't get him. I'm down. Come in here. Let's go. We still have opportunities to open guys. Let's get it done. And that's what he's looking for. He's looking for somebody who's going to get it done. The team doesn't, at this point, the offense and defense don't really care who's going to be the quarterback. They just want a chance to win. And if they think that Tyrod gives them a better chance, they're going to stand behind Tyrod and give him everything he's got. If they think Tommy's going to get another shot, they're going to stand with Tommy and try to give Tommy a best shot. At this point in the season, it's not a big emotional which guy are we back? And it's like, hey, let's get in and let's try to get our plan together so we can give ourselves a chance to win. Like I said, keep trying to improve.
Chris, to answer your question, if Howard was still playing, he'd bring me into the locker room. I'd be right next to him. I'd give him the stats of what the team averages with every quarterback in the center. And then Howard would say, okay, you average 20 points, you average 18, you average 19, we're going with you. That would be the easy solution. Simple as that.
And Lance,
he's a numbers guy. He's all about the numbers, Howard. You know. Yeah.
Boy, and Lance, was that a political answer by Howard or what? I said to him, I said, Howard, if you were in the locker room still playing, who would you? Well, if we go through the boy, Howard,
listen, I'm telling you guys the truth. I've been in situations where they pull the quarterback and they put another guy in and all this stuff. I'm like, as long as we try to win, I don't really care who's quarterback. And I went through, and like, I'm not being disparaging to these guys. I went through the Kent Graham, Dave Brown era when they were both trying to figure out who we were going to be in. Both guys were my buddies and loved them both to death. And one guy would be, they're not campaigning, so to speak, but they're campaigning. Like, well, I don't know if I did, what did I not do? Where am I at now? But that's back when you could bellyache about things and people will sit around and listen to you. But the reality of it is like, we want to win. One of you has to show up. Now, in the cases of guys dropping passes and stuff, I don't know what spark you're going to get from the quarterback if they're not completing passes. In the case of guys not blocking up front, I think you have two healthy guys in these last two games. Right off the bat, I think they're probably going to try to go with Tyrod as the veteran, because I don't think you want to put him in front of have Aaron Donald standing in front of him, DeVito, and him having to look at Aaron Donald all day, because he will be getting in the backfield a lot, and that could be a problem.
Howard, just to use the term that you just said, about guys having to show up in the second half. Tyrod showed up, so that's why I believe he's going to go with Tyrod in the next game. That's not inside information. That's a gut feeling.
And Russ, like Howard said too, you look at the first half, a couple of air mails, like he said, right? And I think there was another play where Tommy was rolling to his right, and Darius kind of improv with him, and he looked like he was open, and Tommy didn't see him too. So it's not. I totally get what Howard's saying about it's not just the spark. He was also missing guys too, and he said, "Get him out of here. Get me Tyrod in this damn game because Tommy's missing some guys out there."
Well, spark was lacking in the first half. That's why he
wasn't moving the team, right? He wasn't moving the team. Right.
Well, and it's the overall decision-making process too by a more veteran quarterback. And I'll leave it at this to put a bow on the conversation. This is exactly why you brought in a guy like Tyrod Taylor to be on the roster, because you can bring him in the middle of a game. He's prepared, and it's not going to be a question. He also can start a game. He's versatile. He's been through this 1,000 times. Brian Daboll's called him a true pro, and I don't think that's hyperbole and PR. That's just the truth. That's how he's conducted himself throughout the entire career.
Lance, 100%. He's a true pro. I mean, I've talked to Tyrod locker numerous times, and that dude is always ready to go. And he's been through everything in this league. It's amazing, man.
Sure. Yeah. Well, especially all the injuries, and he's lost his starting job, and it happened, unfortunately, again this year. But here he may have another opportunity to finish the season. As that is going to wrap up the latest edition of the Giants Hangout. Chris, thank you once again for surviving this discussion. We may press your luck and bring you back a third time. You never know. As a result, Chris Bizignano.
I'll work, Lance. I'll work on Howard. I'll work on Howard.
Hey, I've done a lot of heavy lifting. My shoulders need some relaxation, Chris. So if you want to take some of that on, I'm all for that. Lance Veto, Russ Salisbury, Howard Cross with you. Yes.
I got Howard to laugh.
Hey, mission accomplished. If that's not an indication we should wrap up, then I don't know what is. We'll leave it on that note. It's the Giants Hangout. It's presented by Crestron, a proud partner of the New York Giants. Stay locked to Giants.com for all the latest, as well as the mobile app and your favorite podcast platform.